Stephanie Schumann and her mother, 42-year-old phone operator Deborah Drake, are suing Stephanie's father, 43-year-old auto parts dealer Eric Schumann, for the return of her personal belongings.
Order, all rise. Quiet in the courtroom, please. Yana, this is case number, it doesn't have a number. Case number 575 in the matter of Schumann Drake versus Schumann. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat.
You are Miss Schumann.
Yes.
How old are you?
15.
You're her mother.
Yes.
Your parents are divorced?
Yes.
And you had been living with your father for about 4 or 5 years?
Yes, about 4 or 5 years.
There was some sort of an altercation at work.
Yes.
Place where your father had worked for a couple of years and he had gotten you a job there. And then after the altercation at work, you moved out.
Yes.
And claimed that after you moved out, your father either destroyed or kept some of your property. You weren't there during the course of the altercation or anything else. So why don't you have a seat for me?
Thank you.
When did you start to work with your father?
We started doing inventory services a few years back when I was in 8th grade, and we've been doing them off and on for the weekends just so I can make some money for myself.
All right, now when did this incident happen?
January 28th.
What happened?
We were working up in Long Beach, and we were working in a very enclosed area, and it tends to get very noisy when you're doing inventories.
What is it, doing inventories? Explain that to me.
It's where you go to a dealership, and you sit and you count parts.
Car parts?
Yes.
Okay.
And it got kind of noisy, and I had to ask him several times to repeat some part numbers, and he started getting very frustrated with me, and that morning I was not in the best mood to be dealing with this, so I started getting frustrated back. It led to some words passing between us, and then he told me, just go. I don't want you working with me no more. This is getting very annoying. Why don't you go take a walk? And I told him, look, I just want to continue working. I don't want to have a big deal with this. I don't want to have an argument. Please, let's just keep working. He told me, no, go take a walk. So I didn't want any trouble, so I just went and took a walk for about 30 minutes. And when I felt that I had cooled off enough and he had cooled off enough, we could handle working together, I went back into the dealership. I found where he was. I wanted to start working again, and he told me, no, I don't want you here for the rest of the day. You're fired. I don't want you ever working with me again. I told him, please, this will be the last time we ever work together. He said, no, go take a walk the rest of the day. So I decided to go ahead and comply with this because I didn't want anything further embarrassing to happen. And I went and took a walk. I ended up walking a couple streets down to a nearby park and just sat there for a few hours from about 8 o'clock to maybe 11:15.
In the morning?
In the morning. And I returned to find that his car was no longer in the parking lot. He was no longer at the site. I talked to our boss, and he said he'd already left at 9 o'clock in the morning. Didn't say where he was going, didn't say if he would ever be back. So I went out in front of the dealership, and no sign of him whatsoever until maybe 12 o'clock in the afternoon when I was offered a ride home with a coworker whom I didn't know. And from then, I went to our house. Nobody was home. I didn't have my key, and so I decided just to walk the mile and a half to my mother's house and to deal with things from then. And we just decided that I should live there, and it was no longer going to work that I lived with my father.
When did you go and get your property?
That night, I went to go and get some useful stuff like clothing, things that I found to be very personal.
Did you go with your mother?
Yes, I went with my mother and my stepfather, and we made a call to the police for a keep the peace call so that nothing gets out of hand.
So what is it that you claim your father has of yours?
For Christmas this last year, I received a Fender bass guitar.
So a guitar. What else?
Some T-shirts, some leather pants, some of my stuffed animals that I wanted to keep because I have cherish over those. A snow globe I got for Christmas from my step-grandmother. Some teddy bears that I received for Christmas.
Okay, but mostly the guitar.
Mostly the guitar and a VCR that he gave me.
So tell me what happened at work that day.
Well, the morning had started out a little rough. She had informed me before we started work that she was in a, quote, PMS mood. So I was already informed that this was going to be a rough afternoon. Her mood escalated through the course of the day, and the situation we were in, the work conditions we were in, were kind of difficult. She became frazzled by that, and it escalated from there to the point where she was using obscenities and such, And I knew at that point that we needed to change the situation where I asked her to step away. She refused. It escalated. Finally, she did step away, but after she had stepped away, my boss came up and informed me I no longer was employed there, and I requested to leave post haste.
So you got fired?
Essentially.
You no longer work for them?
Actually, they just recently contacted me to ask me to return, and I have, as of this last weekend.
So you were out of work for at least 2 months?
Yes.
What happened with your daughter's things?
As of that evening, we had gone through, my fiance and I, her bedroom, which was an absolute pigsty, cleaned everything up, boxed everything, placed it out on the front stoop where they were informed to come and get it. As she has all those possessions, less the guitar, a TV, I know nothing of a VCR, and some other items I can't release to her.
Why can't you release them to her?
One is a cell phone that I am financially responsible for. The other one is a handgun that we go target shooting on occasion. And unfortunately, she cannot have possession of that due to the fact she's living with her stepfather is an ex-convict.
You don't give a 15-year-old
Right.
handgun anyway. You have a guitar.
Yes. I wanted to exercise some tough love, and I felt retaining these items in lieu of maybe an apology I could receive on this, which I have not received as of yet.
You don't have a VCR, but you have a television set.
Correct.
Was that television set a gift to your daughter?
Also.
You didn't mention that.
I don't really want the TV set back because at my mother's house, I get to stay in my brother's room, and they had already a TV set in there, and I didn't find it necessary to have 2 TV sets.
And you know nothing about a VCR?
No, ma'am.
Your Honor, I received that VCR because he had bought a new VCR, and he told me that this one is no good and that it'd be better than throwing it out if I took it and used it in my room.
I stand corrected.
So there is a VCR there someplace?
Non-functional, but there is a VCR.
Okay, so she wants the guitar and the VCR. You have any more of her stuffed animals?
Not that I'm aware of. There are some Christmas items she's welcome to, yes.
Okay. So what your father wants, Ms. Schumann, really, is an apology. When you went to live with your father, you were 10?
Yes, I was about 10 years old.
Was that a court order? Or was that an arrangement between your parents?
I
Or
think
you
it
don't
was
remember?
an arrangement because I felt it'd be best that since my mother was leaving the house, that me and my brother be split up, so that'd be less problem for her, i.e. me and my brother not fighting so much. And
How old is your brother?
He's 17 right now.
Gotcha. I'm here to, other than these items which your dad's going to give you back, to make things better.
Okay.
From the time you were 10 years old, did he take reasonable care of you?
Physically,
Be honest.
yes, but
Yeah.
emotionally, not really.
He may not be perfect. Did he try?
I felt that he didn't try very hard when it comes to day-to-day living.
Maybe he didn't have the capacity. All
That's
right?
what I felt too.
Maybe. But teenage kids are sometimes difficult.
I agree.
Right?
Yes.
Had some of those. Bert's had some of those. Are you happy living with your mother now for a while?
I'm quite happy living over there.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. 15-year-old Stephanie Schumann says after a fight with her father, Eric Schumann, he kicked her out of the house and kept her belongings.
Now, your father doesn't intend to keep these things from you. What he intended to do was he wanted you to say, I'm sorry for causing you so much difficulty. You were in a bad mood. I got fired. I was off work for 2 months because of what happened. At least say sorry.
I understand that. And I also feel that, I don't want to seem like, a stuck-up child, but I feel that I should receive an apology for being abandoned in Long Beach.
Yeah, that probably wasn't the right thing to do. Sometimes parents aren't perfect. I'll tell you a story. When one of my children came home from college, their first year, I went and picked them up at the bus station. He got off the bus, and I noticed something glimmering in his ear. I said, oh, that's interesting. Take it out. This was a long time ago. I've softened up a little bit since. As long as it's not sticking on the end of his nose, I'm happy. But then, I said, what is that thing hanging out of your ear? Oh, told me pretty much, get a life. So I said to him, you and your friend may get into the car. The earring cannot. So he thought I was joking. I attempted to get into the car, and I left. I left him at the bus station. And he managed to find his way home. Sure, he said, how could you dare do that? Leave me at the bus station. I said, I will, I'm here picking you up. I travel. Get the earring out of your ear. So he came home and spent the Thanksgiving holiday, and he went back, and I drove him back to the bus station. And as soon as he got into the bus, put it back in his ear. But I did abandon him at the bus station. Now, does that mean I maybe could have handled it a little bit differently? Absolutely. But he knew I loved him. Sometimes parents are not perfect, and they don't handle things perfectly. That doesn't mean you're supposed to stay angry at your father forever. He certainly doesn't want to be angry at you.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
He doesn't want to. So give him a hug.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
And
Okay.
I wasn't angry at him. I did, in fact, make an effort to get a hold of him after, what, a month?
Approximately.
About a month, to inform him, you know, since moving out, I have picked up with my life, and
I'm very proud of her.
like I'm in the drama. I'm going to be in the drama play. I'm in the show choir. I'm in the choir at our school. I'm in the band at our school, and I'm taking more responsibility with my life. And I just wanted to share that with him.
Okay. So you'll make arrangements to get your guitar and the VCR. You take care of that within the next day or so?
Certainly.
Great. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
He wasn't exactly the perfect father, but he did try.
We learn from our mistakes.
Don't mouth off. It gets you nowhere.
I'm so sorry for what's happened. I hope we can mend what, you know, bonds we've broken and get our relationship back together.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Smith versus Rogers. Step forward, please.
33-year-old convenience store manager Grace Smith is suing her former live-in boyfriend, 34-year-old foreman Bruce Rogers, for the cost of her braces. She claims he paid for the braces with money from their joint savings account.
All right, this is a very convoluted and mysterious case since each of you is suing for the same thing, the cost of your braces. I'm going to try to piece together what I understand from these complaints, because they are rather strange. The two of you lived together with your children for several years. According to you, Miss Smith, there came a time when you wanted to have braces put on your teeth to straighten your teeth, make you smile better. The braces were about $3,300. You say that the defendant went to the orthodontist and surprised you, came home and gave you a paid receipt saying, I paid for your braces, and you believed that was a gift. Within a year of that, you separated. At the time of the separation, the defendant, according to you, had $8,000 in his savings account. But it was clear that you had also put in money into his savings account over the years that you lived together. So far, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
The defendant wrote you a check for $4,000, saying was our savings account. You put in money, I put in money, here's half of the savings account. You say that he had, in addition to the savings account, money coming in from a job that he was doing, $6,000. And you feel as if you would be entitled to half of that as well. So far, correct?
So far, yeah.
And he says, I'm not giving you any money from work that I did already. I paid for your braces. Or, just don't have any right to that money. So you want the money back for the braces, which he already paid for. You understand that?
You the judge.
I know. Mr. Rogers is suing for the cost of the braces. $3,300, since he says he's not going to have a chance to see that smile because you don't work it together. Is that your claim?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Miss Smith, would you tell me why you believe that you would be entitled to any part of the $6,000 that Mr. Rogers had coming in from a job?
Okay, I put, over the 2 years that we were together, I put over $10,000 in the savings account. The first year, we took $5,000. I put $5,000. He put $5,000 on the house. The rest of the money stayed in the savings account. The second year, I put another $4,600 in there. $4,000 of it he gave me back. There was another $6,000 that I have no account for. That's the reason I asked him, I said, what about the $3,000 that's coming in? Well, you're wearing your braces out the door. I'll never get to see you smile, so there's your $3,000. During the time we was together, I was taking our children and getting their teeth fixed. We started talking about it. I said, I don't like the gap in my teeth. I said, I never smiled. Well, he said, well, you go check on it, see how much it costs and everything. Let me know, and I'll go pay for it. So I did. If I didn't have the money to go pay for it, so I went and checked on it.
Well, you did. It came out of your savings account.
And so he
Just a second. Ms. Rogers, where did you think he got the $3,300 from to pay your braces?
from the savings account.
Of course.
for where we both put money in.
I understand that. But you knew he was taking the money out of the savings account. Over the years that you were together, didn't you purchase anything that came out of that savings account?
I never touched a savings account.
Well, you never touched it. But it was used for purchases of things. Didn't you purchase things, go on vacation, do things?
Yes. Yes, we did.
Of course you did. I mean, you don't expect any court to go over your finances for the last 2 years and figure out where each dollar went that was in that savings account.
No, no, ma'am.
Of course not. So you got braces. Braces were $300, $400. There's your money. He gave you $4. You got your braces. That's $7,300 or $7,400. And you say you put in 10 altogether. And in the course of 2 years, maybe you spent a couple of $1,000s on something, the two of you. Going away on vacations. Did you ever go away on vacations together? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Who paid for the vacations?
We both did.
From what?
From saving.
So that's what happens. Now what do you want? Now what do you want? You want the money for the braces?
Yeah.
Why do you think you're entitled to the money back for the braces?
Well, when she brought home the payment plan from the orthodontist, we sat down, we went over it. She went to the dentist. He referred her to the orthodontist, which the dentist wrote a letter stating that. And she went, the orthodontist seen what they could do for her, gave her a payment plan, and by paying all at one time, we could save anywhere between $300 to $600, depending on what payment plan we did, if we paid it all at once. So I agreed that we would pay it all at once. Well, I also made the statement that she would have to help rebuild the savings because it took a lot out of the savings at the time. And it wasn't 2 months after I paid for the braces she left.
Consider it like going away on a vacation, Mr. Rogers. You went away on a vacation, only this vacation she's going to have nice teeth. You can't get either one of them back. You decided to pay it all at one time. You decided, right?
Yeah, well, we made the agreement, yes.
No. You decided. I don't think she made any kind of decision at all. You decided to go to the dentist. You wanted to save some money. You paid it all at one time, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Oh. Now, if you had paid it in installments, then she would have been responsible.
I wished I'd have done that.
Right. Well, hindsight is 20/20. Did you ever hear that statement? So you've got your $6,000 that you had coming in from the job when you separated. That's yours. She's got the braces. Consider it you paid for them out of your savings. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Goodbye.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I think he should have gave me half of my money because I worked hard for my money just like he
A
did.
nightclub. Valerie says Billy punched her in the mouth, chipping her teeth and dislocating her jaw.
Order. All rise. This is case number 4 on the calendar in the matter of Brookhart versus Robinson.
Thank you.
Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Have seats.
All right, I have a claim, an answer, and a countersuit. And each of you claims that the other caused you injury during an assault that took place outside of a nightclub. Ms. Brookhart, when did this assault happen?
On February 2nd, Your Honor.
What time did it happen?
Approximately 2:30 in the morning.
Where were you?
We were exiting the nightclub. The pub had closed, and we
Who
all
were you
kind of. I was with my Christina Moore, one of my witnesses. This one closest to me, and we were leaving the nightclub. The club closed. We were all leaving at the same time. Christina and his witness Michelle had some words in the bathroom. As we walked out of the club, it kind of escalated into yelling. At that time, Michelle swung at Chrissy. It had been snowing. Christina slipped and fell.
Okay. You saw all this. This is things
Oh, yeah.
that you saw. Okay. Stop shaking your head. You'll have a chance to speak. So this young lady swung at your friend. She didn't connect,
No.
and your friend slipped and fell.
Yes.
Okay. What happened next?
At that time, Michelle came over. Chrissy kind of stood up, and the two of them just went to town on each other.
So the two of them started to fight.
Yes.
And who else was outside?
Billy and a friend of theirs from Cincinnati.
Go ahead.
At that time, when I saw my friend was getting beat up, I stuck my arm out and I said, okay, whoa, this is enough. The defendant grabbed my arm and flung it and told me to stay the F out of it. So then he started hitting me with his chest. And,
What do you mean hitting you with his chest?
He kind of came up to me and started bumping his chest up against me, telling me to stay out of it.
Okay.
He said, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You ain't got nothing. And I said, what are you trying to do? I said, are you trying to fight with a girl? And he's like, what? And I said, I'm a registered nurse. I take care of people for a living. I'm a woman, you're a man, and I'm not going to fight with you. He just persisted to hit me with his chest and push me. I kind of pushed him back and stepped back away from him. And he kept yelling at me and talking trash, basically. Finally, I said, you can't hit a girl. And he said, I'll have to show you I can't hit a girl. And he just wham, wham, and hit me, busted my lip in 3 different places. He came up in front of me then and started going like this, as if I was going to hit him back, like I'm stupid and I want to get hit again. At that time, I turned around. My face was numb. I'd never been hit before. My face was numb. I turned around to feel and see if my teeth were still there. He chipped 2 of my teeth. Then, as I turned back around, Michelle got off of Christina. They were on the floor wrestling on the ground. Yeah.
She got off.
Kicked Chrissy in the back of her neck. At that time, Billy came over, kicked Chrissy in the back of her neck, jumped on her, and started beating her. I looked at Michelle. We kind of made eye contact, and I said, Michelle, get him off of her. Get him off of her. Michelle's kind of tapping him, saying, Billy, you're crazy. Billy, you're crazy. She was kind of pulling on him, you know, and we're both yelling to stop, and he's just, beating the crap out of her. She still has lumps on her neck, Your Honor, and bumps on her head from this incident that occurred in February. At that time, I reached down and grabbed his collar, and I said, get off of my friend. He stood up, turned around, swung, and just made contact right here and dislocated the left side of my jaw. Shh. After that happened, I grabbed my friend and I said, we're going to the hospital. I said, I'm pressing charges against you, buddy, and you're going to be sorry.
You went to the emergency room?
Yes, I did.
You have the report?
Yes, I did. These are pictures of my mouth, and you can see on my right arm the picture of the bruises, and that's the police report. That's mine and his.
Did you press charges against him?
Oh, I tried to, Your Honor, and they said that because it was a cross complaint, because I think he was smart enough to know if I was pressing charges against him that he'd better do something so he didn't get in trouble. So he also filed a report stating that I guess I attacked him, and so the charges were dropped because it was considered a cross complaint.
Okay. Do you have any medical records?
I didn't get a copy of any medical report. They basically just told me that my jaw wasn't broken, that it was dislocated, and that it popped back in on its own.
They usually write that down in a report, madam.
Yeah, I didn't get a
Doesn't
copy.
necessarily mean that you always get a copy of the report, but I'm telling you for the future, it's a good thing to have if you ever go to court.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Robinson, now I'll hear your version of the events, please.
Okay. On February 2nd, we were at the club, like she said, and we were leaving. And the altercation started in the restroom with Christina and Michelle. And I told Michelle to let's go, you know, just to not even bother with arguing with them. They proceeded, both of them, Ms. Burkhart and Ms. Moore, followed us out to the parking lot. So when we were standing out there, Christina starts making comments about Michelle's mother, and Michelle had asked her to stop making those comments. As we walked, they kept walking, pushing up beside us.
Who's they?
Valerie and Christina kept pushing up beside us. Finally, Michelle turned around and was like, I've had it, Chrissy. Stop with your comments. Chrissy punched her. She punched her in the face. She made the first hit. And then after she hit her, I stepped between them and I put my hands like this to both of them and said, stop, guys. You guys are going to go to jail. They had been drinking. I think she had had a couple of beers. And I was like, you both are going to go to jail. Stop.
You hadn't had anything to drink?
I hadn't drank. I have seizures. I can't drink on the medication. Oh. Anyway, after I had stepped in the middle, Chrissy then proceeded to hit me in the left side of my head, right here, around my temple. And upon that, I shoved her backwards and told her to get away from me. And when I did so, Miss Burkhart grabbed me by the collar of my fleece, which I have here. And she started punching me in the back of my head, yanking me. And she pulled me so hard that she ripped the collar off of it. And after her hitting me about 3 or 4 times, I was like, stop hitting me, trying to get away from her, pull away from her. And I did grab her arm, trying to get her off of me, and she would not let go. I did hit her after she had ripped and hit me in the back of the head, trying to get her off, and she still would not let me go.
Where did you hit her?
I hit her right here.
In the mouth?
Yes, I hit her there.
Go ahead.
And after I'd hit her, she still wouldn't let me go. And there was at one point in the fight that both of them were on me. They kicked me in the back of the head. I do have medical reports from the doctor where I was treated. I went into seizures and was taken by ambulance to the emergency room.
Let me see your report.
And I also have a copy of my police report.
Why did you miss 3 doses of your seizure medication prior to this incident?
I don't think that was actually correct. I had missed two doses. Which
Why?
was, I take 100 milligrams 4 times a day, and I had taken 200 milligrams that day, but I had been at work, and then we got off, we left, so I had just forgotten to take the other 2 pills.
There's also an indication here in the report that you have a recent history of alcohol use. Did you tell him that?
No. I did not tell
Somebody must have told him that you were with in order for them to treat you properly. You are a smoker, is that right?
I do smoke.
And there's a question mark about drugs, but certainly recent alcohol use is circled by the doctor.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Valerie Brookhart says she was assaulted by Billy Robinson outside a nightclub. Billy says he was punched first.
Okay, step up. You were there that evening?
Yes.
Okay. What were you fighting with her about in the bathroom?
It wasn't what we were fighting about in that time in the bathroom. It goes beyond that. It's every time that I'd ever seen Michelle after we had separated. She would come to my mom's house. She had came to our apartment, and it was just a really bad breakup.
So you had a really bad breakup. You didn't get along with each other, but I watched you as they were testifying, and there's no question that you were not only agreeing with the fact, but sort of saying, I did the right thing, that you punched a few people, right?
That's correct.
Who did you punch?
I did punch Michelle.
All right. Now, you explain to me why you punched Michelle, because she was getting in your face.
Right, well, we were fighting. I mean, she swung at me and missed.
And you fell down.
That's correct.
And then you got up.
Yes.
And what did you do when you got up?
I defended myself. That's what I did.
You hit her.
Yes, ma'am.
And you connected.
That's correct.
And you also hit him.
You know what? I don't even remember hitting him because she beat the crap out of me, literally. I felt tons of fists on me. I had bruises all over me. I don't even think they had a scratch on them for me.
Did you file a complaint against them?
I didn't, and at the time, Your Honor, I had...
You did or you did not?
I did not.
Well, why not if you had bruises and marks all over you?
Because at the time, I had a prior court date. It was just too much stress, Your Honor.
Prior court date for what?
I had a traffic violation.
You don't get too stressed because you have a traffic violation, madam.
Your Honor, I was with her for 2 years, and it was in a bad relationship for 2 years. I just wanted it to be gone, and if it would not be for this case, I mean, this is hopefully the last time I ever see her.
Well, I'm talking about hitting him.
Your Honor, he hit me. He jumped on me after Michelle had got up from me. I didn't charge him. You know, I'm not stupid. I'm really not.
Your Honor, she was lying in the fetal position, covering her head on the ground. He was crouched down on top of her. She didn't even see who was hitting her. I mean, at that time, she wasn't even defending herself.
There is no way that Miss Brookhart could have seen where she was because she and I were in a totally different area than these two were after the fight got started. When she grabbed me by my neck, we were over next to the club. They were out in the middle of the parking lot.
I'm talking about before
and she
that.
had a hold of me, shaking me. There's no way that with mine and her confrontation that she could have seen how she was laying at all.
Step up. You're Michelle?
Yes, ma'am.
Michelle, did you take a swing at her?
Yes, after she connected with me right here, I still have the lump on the side of my head. I will not lie and say that when Christina slipped and fell that I did not proceed to beat the crap out of her, but when I came out of the bar, she consistently kept calling my mother a B, and just over and over and over and over again. And I took off my upper shirt and I said, Christina, that's enough. Stop it. And that's when we got face to face and we started shouting. Well, she swung and connected to me right here. Well, then my friend Sarah grabbed me, pulled me away. Then I had my back towards them. They were all three going at it. Then I finally went back because I told Sarah to let me go because they were going after Billy. Well, Valerie and Billy were hitting each other. And Valerie had a hold of this. The fleece was like this. Valerie had a hold of it like this, punching him in the back of the head. And for 6 months, I took care of Billy. And I know that any trauma to the back of his head or his back anywhere is going to send him into a seizure. And so I went to break him up. Then me and Chrissy were in a different location than them two. She slipped and fell. I ran up to her, I kicked her, and then I proceeded hitting her again. I'm not going to lie about that.
Were you the one who took Mr. Robinson to the hospital, or did he go by ambulance?
No, ma'am. I called the ambulance at the apartment because before we even got home, we were driving and he started having seizures in the car.
How did you know he was having a seizure?
Because when Billy starts to have seizures, his eyes roll into the back of his head and his mouth kind of goes crooked and he just shakes like that. And then when we got home, our roommate Jason and his friend Paul and Sarah helped me carry him into the house. I laid him on the floor and then I called 911.
How much did you have to drink when you were there?
I'm not a drinker. I had probably a half to 3/4 of eczema.
What is that?
It's like a beer, fake beer kind of.
And you?
I had 1 beer and 1 water.
Yeah, the place would go out of business. Well, I must tell you, Miss Brookhart, his injuries seem a lot more serious than yours.
But he's known to have seizures. And he was drinking that night at the club.
How do you know that?
I know that because
we were there with him. We were a table apart, pretty much.
He came over to my sister's house and bragged about, him and Michelle both came over to my sister's house bragging about how they beat the crap out of us. That's why she's here.
Step up. Tell me your name.
Vanessa Horsley.
How are you related to this whole case?
This is my sister. Michelle was a friend of our family. After they had broken up, she would come over to our house. We still, kept in contact with Michelle.
Okay.
They had come over bragging.
Who's they?
Michelle, Billy, and another person, telling me that they had jumped them, that they were kicking her in the back of the neck. I mean, they was telling me this in detail. They told me how they were on Special K and candy flipping.
What is that?
I don't know. You have to ask them.
Do you know?
It's some sort of drug. I don't know. They're known to be cocaine
Special
dealers.
K?
Yes.
In Dayton.
I never heard of that. What is Special K?
Special K is a veterinary tranquilizer that they use that people do bake and sell as a drug. I've never tried Special K myself because it is a tranquilizer, and it puts people in a comatose state. And if I'm going to go out and party, I don't want to be put in a comatose state where I don't know what's going on.
And what else aside from Special K?
Candy flipping? Yeah, I don't
What's
know.
candy
I have
flipping?
no clue.
Ecstasy and acid. It's also referred to
Do
as
they use
trolling.
these things in the club that you
I
were
don't
at?
do acid because
No. Do they use these things?
Oh, yes, they use them in a lot of clubs.
In this club?
Yes, they have used those things in that club.
When did they come over and have this discussion?
2 weeks later.
Does that sound familiar to you?
Yes. The time that we were at Valerie's house was way before this fight ever
Vanessa's.
happened, or Vanessa's, I'm sorry, before this fight ever happened. And this is the only time I've ever met her in my entire life. And I have never seen her or talked to her since this happened.
You have not?
Not
You have
once.
not been to the house since?
Not once.
Your Honor.
I've been there one time. I met her one time.
Your
And
Honor.
it was way before the fight.
I spoke to Vanessa on the phone and told her on the phone what happened. We went to Vanessa's house before the fight. After the fight is when I spoke to Vanessa on the phone and told her what happened.
What did you tell her?
I told her that me
Oh,
and
look at
Chrissy
me.
got into it, and Chrissy hit me in the side of the head, and
Look at me.
that I beat the crap out of Chrissy, and Valerie and Billy got into it, and they exchanged some punches. And I mean, ask Vanessa. I mean, the whole 2 years me and Chrissy were together, Chrissy was beating the crap out of me.
Sort of interesting. You say that after this fight, when your sister was injured, and that she came to your house?
Mm-hmm.
Who else lives in your house?
My husband and my 3 children.
Why would you have her in your house after she violently assaulted your sister?
I didn't know about it then, Your Honor.
You mean
They'd come over to tell me about it. I mean, they'd come over.
You mean you have no contact with your sister?
I lived in Cedarville and I had no phone, so anyone that wanted to make contact with me would come to my home.
You mean they just came totally unannounced?
Yes, ma'am.
Why would these two people gratuitously make the trip to your house and proceed to confess to the commission of a double assault?
I'm not sure, Your Honor.
I'm not sure either. I'm not sure if I believe you. How's that? Just doesn't make sense. Now you can all sit down.
Yes.
Except you. Do you both believe that you behaved irresponsibly that evening?
No.
I believe that the situation could have been dealt with differently, yes.
You don't think so?
No, because I didn't start a fight with anybody. I was just standing there watching my friend get beat up. And when I tried to
No,
stop
you
the fight
did, in
is when...
fact, pull him on the back of his shirt and put your hands on him.
Yes, I did. After he busted my lip. After he hit me twice in the face, like you see in that picture.
Well, how did you get behind him in order to grab the back of his shirt after he punched you in the lip?
Just like I said before, Your Honor, the 2 girls were fighting. The one girl got off of her. Billy had already hit me in the mouth at this point.
No, I don't believe that, Miss Brookhart. I don't believe if you're hit in the mouth so badly that your mouth is numb and your lip is split and your teeth were chipped, then you're telling me you got back into the fray by grabbing him, not in the front, but in the back.
Because when I had turned back around, they were already on the floor fighting. And I just reached
They
right
were?
down. Yes.
They were,
Yeah.
not you.
Right.
So you got back into the fray.
I tried to get him off of my friend. So did Michelle. You can ask her. She did
So
too.
she tried to get him off of a friend.
Yeah.
I don't know if I believe you.
Well, that's...
I don't know if I believe you. I believe that you got into a brawl that evening. Both of you. I believe that you both behaved very badly that evening. I don't believe, quite frankly, Mr. Robinson, everything that you tell me about your medication, about your not drinking it all that evening. I don't know about drugs. Probably not. There's nothing in a toxicology report here that indicates that you were on any kind of drugs, but I didn't see a toxicology report, but I don't believe that you had nothing to drink that evening.
There is a toxicology report there.
For drugs.
Right.
It's clean for drugs, but not alcohol.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Sure.
And by history, either by history given by you or the friend who brought you in, you had had a recent history of alcohol, despite the fact that you tell me that you can't drink alcohol because of seizure disorders. Right, so I'm not exactly sure that you're telling me the truth either. However, I believe that both of you behaved badly that evening, and you got into a brawl. And both of you take care of your own medical expenses. You claim and your counterclaim are dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Store clerk Cynthia Sanchez for unpaid babysitting fees. Cynthia says Stephanie made a false report to Child Services.
Order. Come to order. All rise. Quiet in the courtroom. Yeah, this is case number 10 on the calendar in the matter of Moon versus Sanchez. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Ma'am, have a seat, please.
Miss Moon, you run a daycare center. Is that out of your home?
Yes.
How many children do you take care of?
My license capacity allows up to 10.
How long have you been doing it?
A year and a half.
There came a time, according to your complaint, that the defendant brought her baby to you to take care of.
Yes.
And she signed a contract. And included in that contract was a 2-week cancellation clause, which means she had to give you 2 weeks' notice of her intention to remove the child from your daycare. Is that right?
Yes.
And at some point, and you'll tell me when that was, you noticed that the child had what appeared to you to be a bruise on his back, and you weren't sure what it was, and you did what you felt you were required to do by law, which was to call Child Protective Services. Right?
Yes.
You arrived at the daycare center. There was a detective there, according to you.
Yes.
Ultimately, it was determined that there were no problems with the child. There was either a birthmark or a small bruise. In any event, you decided that you didn't want the child to go back to that daycare.
Yes, Your Honor.
Immediately. And you are suing her for the 2 weeks of daycare.
And also absent days.
What's absent days?
When the child misses, it's in the contract that I still require payment when a child's absent.
Okay. Well, when was the child absent? That's not in your complaint.
He had missed 3 days. He was only there for a week and a half.
And how much did she pay you?
Nothing.
Nothing at all?
No.
How many days was he actually there?
5.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And how much a day do you get?
Under her circumstances, social services assist her with daycare, and so they pay an hourly rate.
So she doesn't pay you. Social services pays you?
Yes. But social services does not cover absent days nor 2 weeks cancellation notice as required in the contract. Would you like to see it?
Yes.
It is from here to here.
All right. I have a couple of questions to ask you. How many children did you have at the time that Miss Sanchez brought her son into your daycare?
That's been some time ago. I really couldn't recall off the top of my head.
Well, when was it?
It was in January. I'm assuming probably 5 or 6 because my license capacity includes my children, and they go to school all day.
So you don't know how many children you had in January?
No.
How many children do you have now?
7, plus my 3.
How many children did you have last month?
It varies.
What do you mean it varies?
Well, last month I had some children go on vacation. I had a child move to Wichita. I mean, there's circumstances to where you're
How many were enrolled in your school last month? I don't care whether they were on vacation. How many were enrolled?
Like I said, I don't know.
Okay. How many people?
I didn't see that pertained to the case, so I didn't bring that information. What does the amount of children enrolled in my daycare have to do with her son having bruises?
Shh, shh. Hey, I don't want to hear anything from you. Miss Moon, when you go to a court and you have a trial, one of the things that you do is you answer the questions posed to you by either the judge or a lawyer, because sometimes information that may not seem to be relevant to you is relevant to the person who is required to make a fact-finding determination. In this case, that's me. So I believe it is relevant how many children you had last month enrolled in your school.
And
as far as I'm
and have my records looked up?
Oh, no, absolutely not. The fact that you, as a daycare provider with a limited number of children, have no independent memory of how many children were in your school last month, I'm not talking about a year ago or in January, is a relevant piece of information
Which
to
week
me.
would you
I
like?
will move on with my next question. Now, under what circumstances do you say you noticed these bruises?
He was complaining about his back hurting. And I have the witness here. She was one of my daycare mothers that was there picking up her child when he was complaining about it. And I lifted up his shirt and looked, and she is sitting across the room, and she was shocked by it.
Okay, so step up, please. I'd like to hear from you.
Well, I had arrived to pick up my daughter when I got off work, and the boy was complaining that his back was hurting. And Stephanie went over there and lifted up the back of his shirt.
This was, just a second, this was then at the end of the day.
Of my day.
What time was that?
About, I would guessing, say 3 to 4.
And did you hear the child complaining that his back hurt?
Yes, I did.
When you got there?
Right.
Did you ask the plaintiff whether the child had been complaining before?
No, I did not.
Was the child complaining before?
He had not
3
said
o'clock.
anything. He had just gotten up from a nap. That's why.
Speak. Answer my question. Had the child
I said
complained
no.
before 3 o'clock?
No.
The answer was no. What time had Miss Sanchez's child come to your daycare that morning?
12:30.
Is that right?
Yes.
So the child was there for approximately 2.5 hours, and the first complaint that you heard from the child was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Is that right?
Yes.
Had the child been there the day before?
No, he was absent that day.
Is that correct?
Yes.
What was the reason the child was absent that day?
I had a doctor appointment, and I was gone pretty much most of the day.
A doctor's appointment for yourself or for the child?
For myself. I was pregnant at the time.
You went with the child?
Yes, the child went with me.
How old is he?
He is now 4 years old.
How old was he when he was at the daycare center?
3 years. 3 years and like 10 months.
Now, when you picked up the child's shirt, I assume you did?
Yes.
What did you see?
Bruises.
Tell
what
me about the
appeared
bruises.
to us to be bruises.
Are they size of a small fist? Were they circular? Were they
were
black and blue?
Well, the social services described them as
No,
finger
I don't want to hear what
bruises,
social services.
And
They-
so about the size of your finger. That
Finger-
would be.
Tim, tell me what you observed.
I would say that it looked like fingertip bruises also. It was on the ribs. And I thought that I had saw them on both sides, but the SRS findings said that they did not.
I don't care what the SRS
Well, I
findings
thought
said.
that I had saw them on both sides.
Okay. Now let me ask you a question about these bruises. Were they red or black and blue?
They were dark. They were like a darker bruise. Like they had been there for a couple of days at least.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Daycare owner Stephanie Moon says former client Cynthia Sanchez terminated her services without proper notice.
You called social services, is that right?
I'm mandated by law under my license to report it.
Right. Absolutely. You are. Is this the first time that you had ever reported an incident?
Yeah, the first time I've ever found bruises on a child, yes.
Okay, so it was the first time you ever reported an incident in the then year and some months that you've been in business. How many people supervise these children with you?
Just me.
Just you and 10 children?
Yes.
What are the ages of the 10 children?
Well, I have a 7 and 8 year old that go to school all day. One of my daycare children is 9. He goes to school all day. I have him in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon in summertime. I have an infant that is now 10 months myself. There is a 7-month-old. I have a 2-year-old, 2 4-year-olds right now.
Are you not required by the state to have someone there with you when all the children are there, when all 10 children are there?
No, my license capacity is for me being there, I'm allowed 10 children. If I have an extra person there, I would be allowed more children.
Now, tell me what happened when you arrived at the daycare center.
I was met by detective and social worker. I actually know detective, and
from
my son played baseball for the police department, and that's when I met him. And I was kind of shocked to see him. I was like, I didn't know you had a child that attended daycare here. And he goes, Cynthia, I'm not here for that reason. And then he explained to me what the problem was, and of course I was in shock. I was like, what? And he's like, yeah. He goes, you did, and I did not know there was bruises on my child, so that's what they said they were. So he took me back inside, and I pulled up my son's shirt, and I was looking at him. And I asked my son right in front of the detective and the social worker, they were standing right there, you know, what happened? I said, what happened? And he made the statement that he had fell off of his bike. You know, he did it on his bike, and I was kind of shocked because he had not told me that. The social worker told me I had to take him to the pediatrician the following day to have a complete exam done on my child, which was fine. I took off of work the next day. Actually, I was going to have my sister take him, and I decided I needed to be there as his mother.
Were there ever any charges filed
No,
with
Your
regard
Honor.
to this incident?
I have a thing from the SRS that says that they were not.
All right, social services found the report to be unsubstantiated. Okay. Now, at what point did you decide not to send your child back to the daycare?
The day I had took him to the doctor, she was kind of shocked at the allegations. She had seen my child since he was like 3 months of age, and I was really upset about it because I don't even hit my children. I don't hit them, and I felt like she didn't know me well enough to come to that allegation that I had abused my child. You know, kids are kids.
Okay, Ms.
Can I
Sanchez,
say something,
let me
please?
stop you right there, please. Ms. Moon did not make that determination. What Ms. Moon did was look at your child, and there was somebody else there, and they saw what they believed to be marks on him.
Right.
She is a mandated reporting source. She is required by law, if she suspects child abuse or neglect, to put in a call. That being said, I do not believe that you are required, under the circumstances, to give her 2 weeks' notice, because I can understand that there would be, under these circumstances, animosity.
May I say something?
Sure.
Daycares have these contracts for several reasons. One, financial stability, because you got to have a profitable business to stay open. So if you're saying, oh, well, the mother gets mad at me because I had to call social services to inspect something.
I'll give it to you both ways.
And the parent doesn't have to pay 2 weeks severance,
I'll
so
give it to you.
don't
I'll give it to you 2 ways, madam. First of all, I've looked at your contract very carefully. Contract is something I know. You say in your contract, if you find yourself no longer in need of my services, I require 2 weeks' notice prior to termination. If you want the parents to pay for those 2 weeks, you have to put that in your contract.
Here was one other case that I've won.
You won other cases where people terminated?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to see it. Why people terminated you? For all these people terminated you without giving you 2 weeks' notice. I mean, I can understand it.
Geez,
I
that's
can
a lot.
understand it.
That's all the same case. It is one file for you. To see that in our state, we are allowed our 2 weeks severance paid, because if you were fired from your job, would you not expect unemployment?
I want to tell you something, madam. If I lived in your state that permitted a single person to have 10 children in their home without any support services, without at least 2 other providers
I
in
don't
the
even
home.
have 10 children
I'm
at one
speaking!
time. So?
Case is dismissed.
Can I have my papers, please?
Step out.
I've had one other case, and I was granted my severance pay.
I feel like it went in my favor. As you see, she's hostile anyway, and I'm glad I didn't keep my son in her care.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Balarjan versus Vanessian, step forward, please.
22-year-old production control assistant Elisa Balarjan is suing her former friend, 21-year-old customer service rep Thomas Van Eschen, for the cost of a trip to Arizona to attend a NASCAR race.
Ms. Balarjan, according to your complaint, you, the defendant, and I think one other person, decided to take a little vacation trip, a little road trip. And the agreement was that you would split expenses. The defendant didn't have the money that was necessary. You agreed to advance certain monies to him for the trip. So far correct?
Yep.
And then there also came a time when you were on the trip, sir, that you lost your wallet.
Yes.
And so that they were advancing you money.
Yeah, but at the same time, I had money every time.
According to your answer, there came a time when you lost your wallet. Shall I read you what you wrote?
I know what I wrote.
And they were advancing you some money.
Okay?
Isn't that what you wrote?
It is.
All right. I gather that the amount of money that was advanced is not the issue. The issue is that all 3 of you stayed at your grandfather's house for some part of the trip for free, and You should be credited in that amount so that that would vitiate the debt.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So what was his third of the trip?
What he still owes me, Your Honor.
No, I didn't ask you that.
His third of the trip would be $690.67.
And he paid you $150 after the trip was over, and another $100 before you went on the trip. So far, is that correct?
Yes.
Leaving $440.
I don't think I should owe any. I mean,
No.
for the fact.
I understand you don't think you should owe any, but the reason you don't feel as if you should owe any is not because of the amount, but because your grandfather put you all up for free.
Right, correct, yes.
All right. When did you decide to stay at his grandfather's?
I had actually made reservations for a hotel before we had went down there. Mr. Vaneshan had offered us a place to stay at his grandfather's house, free of charge.
What did he say to you?
Do
you remember what you said?
No, I don't. I don't remember. I don't think I even said that. I mean, after we lost my wallet, I was just like, okay, we can stay at my grandfather's house. We were already staying at my grandfather's house the first night, and it's just the fact that they got all the room free, they got food free, phone bill.
I haven't gotten to that yet, sir. So he said we can stay at my grandfather's for free. Does that sound right?
I don't remember saying we could stay there for free, but yeah, sure. I mean,
Well, did you ever discuss how much it would cost to stay at your
did
grandfather's
not.
house? You did not?
no,
How many nights did you stay at your grandfather's house?
5 nights.
Is that right?
4 nights.
Let's say 4 nights. It's easy. And did you have any meals there?
We had 3 meals, Your Honor.
In total, or 3 meals a day?
3 meals for the entire week.
Did you use his phone?
No, I did not.
Anybody else use the phone?
Not that I am aware of, no.
You know anything different? Did you ever get a bill from your grandfather for
No,
long
I couldn't
distance
get the bill
calls?
I could not get the bill from the company, so
No, did you ever get a... Pay attention. I said, did you ever get a bill from your grandfather?
I did
For
not.
long distance...
Try it again.
I'm going to try it again.
Okay.
Did you ever get a bill from your grandfather for long distance calls?
I did not.
Perfect! So you explain to me now, in 30 seconds or less, sir, why you should be relieved of your third of $440 when it cost you nothing to stay at your grandfather's house and you had no previous agreement with the plaintiff or the other person that by staying at your grandfather's house, this would do away with your having to pay your third of the trip.
Well, obviously, I shouldn't have to pay because he's part of my family, but I think they should have to pay. They would have had to pay the cost of a hotel for 2 people. They would have had to pay to go out to eat every day, and then they ran up his phone bill, which I didn't get the bill. But I mean, also I have a affidavit here that was notarized from my mother. If you want, I can give you her work number if you want to call her. I mean, she couldn't make it here; she's at work. And
That says what?
basically, that she came over to my mother's house asking my mother to pay for me. She goes, "Yeah, he owes me money. Can you pay for him?" And my mom's like, "Well, then sat down and talked to her about it, or stood at the door and talked to her about it." She's like, "Yeah, I will send your grandfather some money to cover that." And he never received a thing.
If she agreed to pay your grandfather for something and she didn't do it, which I doubt, that's between her and your grandfather. It's not between her and you. You had an agreement with her. Your agreement was you were going to split the cost of this trip 3 ways. Pay it! Judgment for the plaintiff, $440, that's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
And 40-year-old basketball coach Darius Foster for punching him after a junior league basketball game.
Order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 585 on the calendar in the matter of Frazier versus Foster.
Thank you.
Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Folks, have seats, please.
Mr. Frazier, you were refereeing a basketball game. The defendant was the coach of one of the teams,
Yes, it was.
and it is your claim that the defendant, after the game, assaulted you.
Yes, he did.
Had you known him before this particular game?
Well, he's actually also a referee, and we had worked together prior to that, but we know each other cordially.
When did this happen, sir?
March 13th.
And what kind of basketball game was
This
it?
was a Boys and Girls Club, 14-year-old, I believe, 14-year-old basketball game.
Was it in the evening?
Yes.
Tell me what happened.
What happened basically is during the course of the game was evenly matched. During the course of the game, 2 kids had gotten into an altercation. They weren't fighting, they just basically had nudged each other after the whistle. At that point in time, I ran to the 2 children to break up whatever might have happened between the 2 kids. Shortly thereafter, as soon as I broke the 2 kids up, I looked up. Mr. Foster had run onto the court. The rules clearly state, and I have a rule book here to verify that the coach is not allowed to run onto the court. Okay, the two kids were not fighting. I broke up the situation between the two children, and when I realized Mr. Foster was on the court, I motioned for him to go back to his seat and sit down.
Did he do that?
He did it. He complied. But regardless of that, the rule clearly stipulates, and I could not deviate from what is the rule.
Don't tell me the rules state that he's not allowed to come out on the court.
No, under no uncertain terms, unless a player is injured, unless I beckon him onto the court. I did not beckon him onto the court. No one was injured. It was a fight about to happen, which did not happen.
I got you. So he came on the court. He's not allowed to do that under the rules. You motioned him to go back. He went back.
He went back.
But then you did what?
I gave him a technical foul.
Now, tell me what a technical foul is.
A technical foul is a team foul on a coach. Technical foul is 2 shots for the other team and the ball, okay?
Okay, so that means that the other team,
got an advantage.
his adversary, got an advantage.
Exactly.
Okay, and did they win the game?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Not as a result of the technical foul. Okay,
well, whatever, whether they did or they ended up winning the game.
They won the game.
So after the game, what happened?
After the game, I went to my partner, the guy I work with, and shook his hand and said, great game. He acknowledged and said, good game. I bent over to pick up my jacket. When I reached over to pick up my jacket, I saw Coach Foster come from his side of the bench to my side. I just assumed he was coming to say good game or whatever. He came over, and I had my jacket in one hand, and I was extending the other hand to say good game. I had my jacket on, and he punched me.
Where did he punch you?
In left side of my face, right around the orbital area of my eye. Blood.
Did he say anything?
Didn't say a word, didn't argue with me during the game, did not argue with me after the game, did not argue prior to striking me. He never said a word. It was a sucker punch. It was a mugging, a back alley mugging, because I had no idea that this man was angry. His facial expression, his body, never gestured to me like he was angry.
Were there other children still there?
All around, everybody, in front of kids. It was just,
that's what I wanted.
It was a disgrace to do this in front of kids.
What kind of injury did you sustain?
After I was hit, blood just flew everywhere. My eye swelled really quick. As soon as he hit me, I looked at him, I said, well, I was just about to shake your hand. I couldn't believe you did this, I have pictures here to prove just how bad it was.
I'd like
Pictures
to see
were
them.
taken the next day. Actually, that night, I believe. I had to go to the emergency room. My insurance covered my emergency room, but the next day, I didn't have any idea. But the next day, I had half of a contact lens broken, stuck in the top of my eye. I didn't even realize my eye was so swollen that I had to reach in and pull it out. I went to the eye doctor the next day, and the eye doctor told me to come in there. He would examine it while it's swollen. He wants me to come back.
Do you have any receipts or bills?
Yeah, I do.
From the emergency room treatment? I'd like to see.
The eye doctor wants me to come back. He wants to make sure that he examines this a couple more times, because this is a latent injury. This injury could detach retina, the orbital bone around my eye.
Mr. Foster, let me hear your version of the events, please, sir.
Yes, Your Honor. It was a 14-year-old basketball game. I knew how important this game was to me, so I went to both refs to let them know that this is the playoff game, and whoever loses, they eliminated from the playoff. Their season is over. So I wanted a fair game, and because of previous games that I coached, they called a game against me.
Do you do this for the enjoyment of it, or do you get paid as the coach?
I love refereeing as well as coaching.
Do you get paid as the coach?
No, ma'am. It's volunteer.
Okay. So you went to all the refs and you said, this is an important game to me.
Right. Because
Your Honor, he really emphasized to me.
Because the kids have put a lot of time and
I'm sure both teams put in a lot of time.
Right, and so I wanted to make sure we had a good game, Well, during the course of the game, Mr. Frazier, in my opinion, he was calling a bad game. But I played through it because I knew I had a talented team and that we can overcome this because we have beat the team before.
Your Honor, he also...
I don't want you to interrupt. He didn't interrupt you.
Okay.
So as the game went on, it began to become aggressive, and the kids were starting to push and shove, and wasn't no fouls being called. So what had happened was I think it was in the fourth quarter with approximately 3 minutes left in the game. The kids got into an altercation. They started pushing each other, and I was looking for the ref. Whether one ref had made a call, he called a foul on the other team, and then I was looking for the other ref. He was interacting with the parents on the sideline. So I just ran onto the court to break the fight up.
It was a fight?
Shh. I said don't interrupt. Go ahead.
It wasn't a physical fight. The guy was on the ground. He elbowed my guy in the groin. My guy kneed him in the back. The guy on the ground, he jumped up and got in the guy's face. So I was like, hey, man, they about to fight. My instinct just ran on the court to break it up before it escalated. Well, I grabbed the guy from the other team. I escorted him to his bench, and I was explaining to him that this was too big of a game for that. I said, man, you need to just calm down, man, get yourself together before you get thrown out of the game. So I pat him on his back, walked him to his bench. I went and got my guy and did the same thing. I even went to take my guy out of the game so that he can calm down. After that, Mr. Frazier, he turned to me and said, I have to call a tech on you for leaving the floor. I was like, hey, man, I went to break up 2 kids from fighting. He like, but you came onto the court. Clearly, Your Honor, that is the rule. But I thought that was the rule. When kids act in unsportsmanlike conduct, that they should also be assessed a tech. If they would have gotten a tech, it would have resulted into no free throws made. The ball would have been, it would have went to the alternating possession arrow.
Whatever, don't complicate me with the rules of
Okay,
basketball.
it would have went to the alternating possession arrow.
Listen to me. I understand basically that if he hadn't called a technical foul just on you...
Or me.
Try receiving.
Okay.
If he hadn't called a technical foul just on you, but had called one on the other team too, it would have washed away both of them.
Right.
Is that right?
Right,
That's
exactly,
right.
Your Honor.
But he didn't.
Right.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Basketball referee Otis Frazier says team coach Darius Foster sucker punched him after a game. Darius says he thought Otis was going to hit him first.
Okay. So now you've got a technical foul because you ran out on the court and the game is over and your team loses.
Right.
Pick it up from there.
Okay. My team lost by the margin of the tech. I was very angry on it. Although I didn't say anything to Mr. Frazier or nobody else, I was upset because I knew that
I didn't know he was angry.
I knew that our season was over. I was putting my balls in the bag, and Mr. Frazier was coming through the score table, so he was walking to me as if he wanted to shake my hand or whatever, and he said, man, good game. I'm sorry I had to make that call. I clearly say, man, you didn't have to make that call. You didn't have to make that call, and I pushed him. I was angry, I was frustrated, so I pushed him out of frustration. He backed up, took his jacket, and set it down. Then he turned to me as if he was going to retaliate from the push. And I don't know, later he said that he was coming to shake my hand.
Don't tell me what he later said.
Okay, I'm sorry, Your Honor. His hand came out to me, and I didn't know if he was coming as he wanted to shake my hand again, or was he retaliating.
So you punched him?
Yeah, I protected myself, Your Honor.
You did not. You acted in a very unsportsmanlike fashion, sir. You did not protect yourself. You used your hands first in a very unsportsmanlike way in front of other children, causing injury. Who are you?
I'm his wife. I'm his witness.
You're his witness to what?
To the whole situation.
He told me exactly his version of what happened. If I believe him, he's wrong. If I believe him, he's 150% wrong. He put his hands on somebody else in anger. He's 100% wrong. Not that I believe that that's the way it happened, because even he says in his answer that the plaintiff came over and extended his hand to say, good game. That's what he says.
Right.
That's what he says. And at that point, he put his hands on him. Wrong. Can't do that. But I don't necessarily believe that. I believe what happened just the way the plaintiff described, that he sucker punched him in the eye for no reason. He was not angry. He didn't lose the most important game. I mean, like $10 million is at stake in this game. You got to get your testosterone in check, sir. Judgment for the plaintiff and the amount requested, $5,000 for pain and suffering and injury. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
He kept coming after me, wanting to get back.
Parents and coaches feel that they can just treat basketball officials any way they want.
He kept swinging at me, missing, and I kept punching back to protect myself.
Hope this sends a message to everybody that you won't be getting away with it.
It definitely was more than I bargained for.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Lopez Martinez versus Musada. Step forward, please.
25-year-old receptionist, Laura Lopez, and her boyfriend, 29-year-old engineering specialist, Vince Martinez, are suing 45-year-old Venus Muzada. Laura claims Venus keyed her car in a parking lot.
Who was driving that day?
I was.
Were you in the car that day?
No.
You are owner of the car?
Yes.
So you can have a seat. Thank you. This incident took place, allegedly, when the two of you had some sort of a misunderstanding when you were in your car over a parking space.
Yes.
When you were either backing out of a space, trying to get into a space, and you say that she got angry, got out and keyed your car.
Yes.
She says she was angry, but she never did that. Where did this happen?
In the parking lot of my job.
Is that the same place where you work?
No.
What were you doing there?
I was there to make up my car payment in that building.
Were you in a parking space that day?
No, I was waiting for her, I'm assuming it was her husband, to back out, and I was going to take the parking spot.
Who was in the car with you?
My friend. It's not my husband, it's my friend.
Who was driving?
He was driving, I was the passenger.
So what happened?
I was coming back from lunch at 12:30 on February 16th. Noticed that he had his reverse lights on. I parked waiting for him to back out so I could take the parking. He backed out, tried to come out. When he put it back into drive, he almost hit my car. When he passed by me.
Did you park in front of him, or were you behind him waiting?
No, we were actually facing each other. When he backed out, I was already here.
So you weren't really giving him a lot of room?
There's plenty of room. I have pictures of the parking lot to show
Okay.
that there's plenty of room.
So he's backing out, and you're standing there waiting to pull into his spot?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Puts it in drive, almost hits my car, pulls up, passes me. On the verge of passing me, we exchanged words.
What kind of words?
I called him an effing.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Go ahead.
He passed me. I parked, got out of the car, got all my stuff, started walking out. They came in reverse. Her window was down. She asked me, what did I say? I said, you heard me. She said I was a stupid. I said, fine, kept on going. I thought they were leaving. They put the car back in drive. They drove away. When I turned around, I noticed that their car had turned. I went into my building, dropped off my purse, came back out to have a cigarette, noticed that they had turned around again, doing like a figure 8, parked directly behind my car, now blocking my car in. I went to the stairs, and I have pictures of the stairs to show where I was at, noticed her get out of her car with her keys, went from the gas tank of the driver's side all the way up to the front fender. I stepped down to see who it was, what she was doing, just to make sure. When I stepped down, I noticed that she was now turning around with the keys back into her pocket, got back into the car. I went to the back of the car, got the license plate, the make, the model, went back in and called the police.
Okay. Now I'll hear you.
Okay, we were at this building. I'm making my payment for my car payment. We didn't took long to back up the parking space because we were talking about where to eat lunch.
Okay.
And then when my friend backed up already, she was cursing to us. So she did say bad words. And then I told my friend to back up. So she parked already on that space. And then I asked her, what did you say? And then I called her names because she called names too.
Was she in her car at the time? And you were in the car?
I
You were
was
both
in the car, and then she went out already from her car.
She was going in towards the building?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And then we left already after that.
You left?
Yeah.
You just pulled right out of the parking lot?
And then after a week, detective called me, went to my old apartment. I was there at the time visiting my sister.
I'm not interested in visiting your sister. You got contacted by the police. So
And
it's
then-
your story that you backed up, you asked her what she said, you may have said a bad word to her, and then you just left, and she walked into her building. Is that right?
I don't know where did she go.
I don't know. How would I know? I don't know when she would have had time to write down my license plate number. You think she wrote down your license plate number when she was driving her car and she was pulling into the space? You think she wrote down your license plate number for any reason then?
I don't have
And then
any
you got out
idea.
of the car. Listen to me. Then you say she got out of her car and just walked past you and walked right into her building, right? And then you just drove away.
Yeah.
Right? Then you
did.
just drove away. So let us assume, madam, that nothing happened to her car. When do you think she would have written down your license plate number and the make and model of your car?
I don't know, maybe if she was still standing there and then...
How could she be still standing there? You just told me you pulled out of the parking lot and left. Isn't that what you just told me?
Yes.
Book. There is no way, Ms. Lopez, that you would have taken down a license plate number and the make and model of the car and called it into the police unless her car had still been in the parking lot at the time she said she drove off. Right? Mm-hmm. Because you were on your way to work. You were going into work. Mm-hmm. But for the fact that you turned around and saw her car still in the parking lot doing these little wheelies, you would have thought nothing of it. Mm-hmm. Right?
Right.
But she didn't figure that out when she was telling me the story. Because otherwise you wouldn't take down a license plate number on a car. There would have been no reason for it. You had a few words and she was off.
Right.
Right. I didn't think women did this road rage thing. Did your insurance pay for any of this?
No.
Okay.
I have a $500 deductible, and I can't come up with $500 to get it fixed.
Well, you understand that you're suing her for $5,000, which includes your emotional distress. Your emotional distress isn't worth that kind of money. Do you understand that?
Right.
All right, so that's nonsense.
Right.
You have a $500 deductible, so your out-of-pocket is $500. Mm-hmm. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $500. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Washington, his girlfriend, Michelle Hastings, and Michelle's mother, Brenda Hastings. She claims they owe her for unpaid rent and credit card charges. Michelle and Charlie are countersuing for damages to their car.
Order. All rise. Now, this is case number 346 on the calendar in the matter of Miller versus Hastings, Washington. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have seats, please.
Who are you?
Brenda Hastings. I'm Michelle's mother.
How old is Michelle?
17.
Okay. Miss Miller, Michelle is your son's girlfriend.
Yes, ma'am.
This is your son.
Yes, ma'am.
So you're really suing your son and his girlfriend. Her mother is here because she's a minor.
Yes, ma'am.
It appears from what I've read that you decided to rent a house. You were
Yes,
separating from your husband or something like that.
Yes, ma'am.
And that your son and his girlfriend said that they wanted to come and live with you. You say that this didn't work out, but they owe you for back rent. They owe you for money that they put on your credit card. They have a counterclaim. And their counterclaim involves both of their cars, which they say that you took, you hid, and caused damage to.
No, ma'am.
So that's what the case is about. Very complicated. When did you decide to rent this house?
About the second week of September.
And what was the rent on the house?
$575 a month.
And what was your arrangement with your son and his girlfriend?
I had planned on moving. My husband and I were just going to separate for a little while to work out some differences. There was a duplex that I had been waiting on that was around the corner from the house. My 15-year-old son had told Charlie here that we were moving, and Charlie indicated to him that he needed a place to go. He was tired of the stuff at Brenda's house. I had talked to Charlie.
He had been living with you? Is that right? How old are you?
19.
I had talked to Charlie and told him that was fine. There was no mention of Michelle at the time. That came up later with Charlie saying that she don't really act like she acts, but she'll act better when she's not around her mother. I thought about it for a while, and I said, well, we'll give it a try.
This is a lot of information that I really don't need.
Okay. Well, I went up and asked the landlord. The landlord said they were renting it.
Oh, okay, fine. So you decided to rent it, and you decided to let the two of them move in with you.
Right.
And what was the financial arrangement with them?
We would go on the rent 3 ways.
Did you discuss that with her mother?
No, ma'am.
And you knew she was 17?
Her mother had put her out.
They
wanted both. They had asked several times for both of these to put them out. And my young son here, Derek,
Miss Miller,
can tell you.
That's not my question. My question was, you knew that Michelle was 17.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Michelle cannot enter into a contract with you because she's a minor.
Mm-hmm.
So if you did not have an agreement with her mother to pay a third of the rent, you cannot sue Michelle for a third of any rent that you believe she owes you. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's do away with that. So let's deal with your son. Did your son give you any money towards the rent?
No, ma'am.
Yes,
He gave
I
me
did.
$150 to help put on deposits on the utilities.
So he gave you $150?
Yes, ma'am.
How long did they live in the house?
6 weeks.
3
weeks. 6 weeks.
And when did you move out of the house?
The 28th.
Of September?
Yes, ma'am.
Charlie did not move out of that house until the 10th of October.
I moved out the 28th.
You stayed there. You were on the run from the police.
Just a second. Miss Miller.
Yes, ma'am.
What rent do you believe your son owes you?
For him and Michelle, then it should have been half of the $575.
No. Miss Miller. He's supposed to pay a third of the rent, right?
Right. But I have a 15-year-old at home that these two here complained what was his part of the rent because he was getting child support.
Did you move in with another child?
The 15-year-old moved in shortly after these two did. He didn't stay there all the time, but he was there.
What about you? Did you move in?
I didn't move in until the 24th
of September. September?
No, August. Oh, no, it was September. I'm sorry. I didn't even stay there half of the time.
Miss Miller.
Stayed maybe a whole week
Miss
out of
Miller, did you move in August 24th or September 24th?
September 24th.
Okay. Well, let's go to the credit cards that you say that they used. How did they come to have possession of your credit cards?
They didn't have possessions. We had an agreement. I have a letter from the landlord because Mrs. Hastings was putting them out. We had an agreement to try to get the house livable for them to live in so they had a roof over their heads. And
you're talking about credit cards, Miss Miller. Let me hear about the credit cards money.
I put my credit cards, to get the house in order for them to live in, it had to have floors, it had to have cabinets, it had to have everything. The house was gutted out. It had to have everything.
So is that what was put on your credit card?
Yes.
So why do you think they should pay for that?
Because we're in agreement. Mrs. Hastings put them out.
Negative.
Stop saying Mrs. Hastings put them out. It doesn't make any difference whether she put them out or not. Now, am I correct?
It does
that
make a difference.
No,
yes,
it doesn't make a difference legally.
Her mother put them out. He didn't have a place to go. He could not go to my house that I own. My husband will not let him stay there. He's already ripped us off. He's breaking into the house. He's broken into the garage. He's not allowed on the property. Okay?
Miss Miller.
I did what I could to get him a roof over his head.
Miss Miller, you're his mother. Listen to me. You're his mother.
Excuse me, ma'am. But I've got papers. This boy has been in and out of jail, detentions. He was stolen from me when he was 14 months old. I've got legal documents, Charlie, to prove it all.
Miss Miller.
He's on drugs. I've tried for years to get him help, okay?
Miss Miller, listen to me. I understand that you have a frustration with him.
If you helped him out as much as I have in a lifetime, you would too.
Miss Miller, listen to me. If Miss Hastings allowed your son to come and live in her house with her 17-year-old daughter, then she's got rocks in her head and probably decided she had had enough. Bottom line, that's your son. It's not her son. And if she had had enough of him and was putting him out, and her daughter Michelle says, I'm not staying here without him, then she says, you want to go with him? Go with him.
He's been living there with her since she was 15 and he was 17.
You want to know something?
And she's put him out 3 times.
Miss
and
Miller.
I have been there.
Miss Miller. Miss Miller.
Yeah, okay.
Miss Miller.
Yes, ma'am.
This is your son. And if she's put him out 3 times, and if he was living there from the time he was 17 years old, it had to have been because you and your husband put him out.
Exactly.
No, he left on his... No, you left on your own
Miss
because
Miller,
you
don't
were
talk
on
to him.
drugs, Charlie.
Miss
You were
Miller,
selling drugs
1, 2,
out of my
3.
house.
Miss Miller.
And I called the police
Put her
on you.
outside.
That's why you left.
Put her outside. I'm going to let you cool off outside, Miss Miller.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Latina Miller says her son Charlie Washington, his girlfriend Michelle Hastings, and Michelle's mother Brenda owe for rent and repairs to her home.
Okay. Miss Miller, you can't talk to your son. This is not time for you to shout at your son when you're in a court. Time to do that is when you had him in therapy when he was 7 years old. If your son had been giving you problems and moved out of your house, whether you put him out of your house or whether he left voluntarily, you knew where he was living with the Hastings family and their daughter. That was probably a major error on their part. Some people do that. I never quite understand why they take in somebody else's problem into their home. But be that as it may, if you decided that you wanted to put a roof over your son's head as his mother, that's what your job is. That kind of unconditional love is what you do for a child, even if they drive you crazy. Are you currently living in the house?
No, ma'am.
Did you decide to go back to your husband?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that where you are now?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that where you're going to stay, you think?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about the cars. You took your son's car out of impound?
I paid to get it out, yes, ma'am.
What'd you do with it?
Set it in my backyard.
And what happened to it?
It sat there until the day that he came and threatened me. And then I took it down on the corner where I told him and the police officer that I would set it and left the keys in it, that in the Nissan.
And somebody stole it?
I don't know.
Well, it wasn't found on the corner, is that right?
I don't know where they found it at.
Where did you find your car?
I found mine in a ditch on Orville Smith.
It was not in a ditch. I got pictures of where I left it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So what you're saying is somebody took the car after you left it there with the keys in it. Why'd you leave it there with the keys in it?
There was no keys in it.
There was keys in it.
Crazy.
When you left it, the keys were in it. So I'm asking you, why did you leave it with the keys in the car?
He came, he harassed me. I didn't want him on the property. And for him to come get the keys, then he would have to come on the property. And I talked to him in the back of the police car and told him.
What were the police doing there?
I called him because he threatened me.
When did he threaten you?
When he came to the house.
Was this after he had moved out of the rental house?
No, he was in jail. He had just gotten out October 31st, and I didn't know he was out of jail.
What was he in jail for?
Theft of property from an auto and breaking and entering of an auto.
What were you in jail for?
Assault the third.
He was also in jail for that.
Assault the third.
Who did you assault?
My girlfriend.
You ever arrested for breaking and entering?
Yes, ma'am.
When?
In 97.
What about auto theft?
Yes, ma'am.
So you got his car out of impound, you told the police he had threatened you, you had taken the car, you were parking it at the corner, you were leaving the keys in the car, and that's the last you know of the car.
Yes, ma'am.
And you found the car when you got out of jail, sir?
I did.
Where did you find it?
It's on Orville Smith Road. She parked it in the edge of the woods.
No, she doesn't park it anywhere. You found it there. You didn't
I
see
found it there.
You found it there.
I got out and I looked and I turned around and I went back to my house. And I brought him down there and he couldn't find no keys nowhere in the car.
Well, maybe somebody who stole the car took the keys after they finished joyriding in the car. What about your car?
Well, my mother and my father found it in a hayfield.
What makes you think that Miss Miller took your car?
Because she stole the keys out of my purse. I didn't have it in my possession.
No, I did not steal the keys from her purse. This key goes to a car of Charlie's that he has in their yard. I don't know if it runs or not, but it was on this key ring with this key. And when I talked to Charlie on the phone after he had beat up Michelle, he told me one of them keys went to the car. And that's how I got the car.
So what did you do with the car?
Charlie explained for me to take the car to my house and park it and not to let Michelle have the car.
You mean her car?
No, it's his car. It's legally in his name.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Is your car, the car that you're talking about, that you're suing over, in whose name is that car titled?
His.
You have two cars titled in your name?
Yes, ma'am.
What year cars are they?
94 and 87.
What do you do for a living?
Well, I was working at Arby's.
At Arby's? Who bought the cars?
I bought one, she bought one. But she wasn't old enough to put it in her name, so I signed for it.
Why didn't her mother sign for it?
Because they went and got it without me. I was at work. They went looking at cars. They picked up one and she bought it.
Miss Hastings,
yes.
Is he still living in your house?
He is right now, yeah.
You had him arrested for beating up your daughter. You've thrown him out of your house at least 3 times.
No.
He left your house 3 times in the last 2 years. You took him into his house, into your house when he was 17 years old. Since he was 17 years old, he's been arrested several times, according to him, for a variety of things. Breaking and entering, auto theft, assaulting your daughter. Would you kindly tell me what kind of medication you're on? Because I want to take some. If you don't see that he's not right for her.
Real cases, real people. Judge Judy. Bettina Miller says her son Charlie Washington, his girlfriend Michelle Hastings, and Michelle's mother Brenda owe for rent and repairs to her home.
Miss Hastings, he's not right for her.
He may not be right for her, but everybody has to make their own choices. And
hey. Everybody has to make their own choices once they're an adult. Until you're an adult, your parents help you make those choices, and they don't do things that encourage you to make bad choices.
Well, Tina has put her son out several times.
Tina's son is a bum. Was your daughter a bum when she was 15?
No, my daughter was in school when she was 15.
Is she still in school?
She's going to night classes.
No. Before she met him, she was in school.
Yeah, but she...
After she met him, she's not in school.
Had nothing to do with him.
Oh, listen, Miss Miller.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to give you some words of advice. Is this the first child that you've had that's been in trouble?
Yes, ma'am.
You think you know how to deal with it now?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me how you're dealing with it.
I work with the best I can.
My advice to you is you be there as a backup in case of an emergency, in case something bad happens. But until he grows up and stops doing things that are both harmful to himself, to the people that care about him, and to you, he's going to have to make his own mistakes. If you put yourself in a financial position where you've stretched your finances, it's a foolish thing to do. Because what will happen is he will never be forced to grow up. You tell me you put him out of the house, or he left the house when he was 15. The Hastings took him in. And when the Hastings decided to put him out, you provided a roof over his head. He's never had to grow up and face responsibility. Had 2 cars titled in his name, working at Arby's.
Well, he didn't buy the car. The Firebird was given to him as a gift by me and my husband. I did not put him out of the house. He had a choice. He could go to jail or he could go back to Michigan to his dad. He took off on his own. He was on the run. We did look for him. He stayed with a friend of his up in a trailer, drinking, getting high. The owner of the trailer came to our house, wanted to know what was up. We went up there. He was gone.
Okay. Miss Hastings, I've already told you what I think of the fact that you allowed him to move back into your house after he beat up your daughter. That's the dumbest thing I ever heard. Absolutely the dumbest. And if your daughter wants to be dumb enough to take off with him, as you said, people make their own choices, but you're making it real comfortable for her to do things that ultimately are going to be devastating.
It doesn't matter in what they have done. I mean, it's the car situation. It's her having them to move into a rental house because her marriage, she moved out.
Listen to me. I'm not dealing with your lawsuits. Both of your lawsuits are nonsense. Hers, she cannot convince me that her son owes her any money. With regard to the cars, you have no proof whatsoever that your mother took your car, put it in a ditch. She says that after an argument with you, she told the police, I'm putting the car on the street corner with the keys in it. I don't want him anywhere near my house. A reasonable explanation is that somebody walked by, saw the keys in the car, took it for a joyride, and trashed it. I think that both of you, but especially you, Miss Hastings, I don't understand you at all. What do you do all day, sir?
Now?
Now?
Go to school.
No, you don't.
At night.
I asked you what you did during the day. Don't tell me that you go to school at night. What do you do all day?
Hunt for jobs.
Hunt for jobs. Michelle, what do you do all day?
Work.
Where?
At Walmart.
You work 5 days a week?
8 hours a day, 5 days a week.
And you come home and he's watching TV? Michelle, look at me. You come home and he's watching TV?
I don't know what he does during the day.
Michelle, before you get pregnant, get smart. You'll be working at Walmart, 9 months pregnant, and he's going to be sitting home playing with Nintendo that you will have bought him for Christmas. Get smart. Cases are dismissed.
29-year-old payroll clerk Rebecca Moore for unpaid credit card charges. Nancy says the payment stopped when her son rebuffed Rebecca's advances.
Come to order. All rise. Yeah, this is case number 441 on the calendar in the matter of Griffin versus Moore.
Thank you, Bert.
Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Folks, have seats.
According to your complaint, you and the defendant met when I believe her husband and your son were incarcerated together.
Yes, ma'am.
Your complaint alleges that you developed a friendship and you allowed the defendant to charge certain items on your credit card with the agreement that she would repay you or pay the bill as it came in. Initially she did, then she stopped. And you allege that when she stopped paying, she owed you $842.
That's correct, Your Honor.
So when did you first meet the defendant?
I think approximately about a year ago. My son was incarcerated, and he was her husband's roommate. So we became good friends, and we would go shopping at the Avenue, and every time she would charge anything, she was so good about paying it. I mean, it was probably most of the time before it even became due. When my son got out of incarceration, she had a type of attraction to my son. It became almost impossible for me to have conversations with her because I did not want to be in the middle.
Your Honor, that's not the truth.
Just a second.
And after a lot of harassing phone calls, I had asked to quit because I couldn't take it anymore. Then at that time, she refused to pay for what was left to be owed on my credit cards.
What was left?
This is the deposits of as far back as we started this. These are all that she's charged, all she's paid, what she owes is left.
So she paid on time until October?
Yes, ma'am, till the end of October.
Okay, now I'll hear you.
What she said is correct as far as our friendship. Her son was incarcerated with my husband. When things went bad was because her son had a drug problem. And I tried to help him.
Your Honor, this is irrelevant.
Just a second.
Her son asked me for a ride to the interstate. I took him to my house instead of the interstate. Miss Griffin got to my house before we did. Basically, her son had took a video camera from her. She had searched her son's coat. She pulled out the camera. So then she left, and her son was still there with me. I then took her son to his girlfriend that lived in Charleston, and that's when his mother, she turned against me. She told me our friendship was over because I tried to help her son.
What date was that?
Ma'am, to be honest with you, I'm not sure.
Okay. She says that you did not pay the October bill, which
Ma'am,
is 800.
I have a check.
Which is 800. Listen to me.
Okay.
Which is $846.05.
Yes, ma'am, I understand
the October bill. Okay, let me see.
And I'm not denying that there were credit card charges. There were. I have a check from State Street Bank that was given, that it was a 401k check that I received from my employer. I have a copy of the front and back of that check that I gave her permission to go get out of my post office box and endorse and deposit into her account. She gave me $368 back.
May I see it, please?
And I have it where she endorsed my name and her name on the back. That's not my signature. Because at the time I was on a medical leave, she knew that my money was a little tight. I told her to take the check to pay for the bills because I never missed paying her.
I'm just trying to find the date on this, when she endorsed it.
It was on 10/27 on my, it's on, I think, the second or third page of my bank account statements. And you'll see right next to it where I cashed a check for the exact amount and gave it to Miss Moore at my home right in front of my husband. He'll be a witness to that.
Her husband has never been present.
Just a second.
We've made any charges or any money exchange.
Just a second. So what you're telling me, Miss Griffin, is that at the time your friendship was coming to an end, the defendant gave you a check, which you did in fact cash, in the amount of $1,012.99.
Yes, ma'am.
And you gave her the entire amount of money.
Yes, ma'am.
Doesn't make sense to me, Miss Griffin.
That weekend, Miss Moore came to my house.
Yeah.
I gave her the full amount of cash, handed it to her.
Right.
She said she wanted to give me $300 because she had a rainbow rental or something that was pressing and had to be paid. And she said when she got her check on Tuesday...
Let me see the rest of her papers, please.
When she got the rest of her check on Tuesday, that she would take care of the rest of it.
Your Honor, I could have...
And the whole time Miss Moore was out on disability...
Just a second.
I could have cashed that check myself.
I cashed her check because she did not have a bank account at that time. I took care of things for her. She had some drug problem, and
Thanks to you.
she tried to commit suicide.
Not interested in that.
Well,
Your
I mean,
Honor,
I
that
was
is
there
not true. I
taking
have
care
some
of her.
police
I
reports.
didn't want to turn my back on her.
Your Honor, that is...
Were there any witnesses present to the transfer of this $1,012 to Miss Moore
My
on the
husband, Michael
27th?
Griffin, was there.
Is he here?
Yes,
Your
ma'am.
Honor, he
Stand,
was never
Michael.
present during any of these things.
Just a second.
It was just me and her.
Go ahead.
Mrs. Moore wanted to meet with my wife at our home because whoever she was seeing for therapeutic reasons told her to come to closure between Kevin and Nancy. And I was standing right there in my bedroom. She was sitting in the blue chair to the left of my bed when Nancy handed her $1,012 and change, and Rebecca handed her back $300 to redeposit in Nancy's account.
No, ma'am, that is not true. Mr.
And-
Griffin was never
Now,
present
just a
during
second.
any of these transactions.
Just a second. I don't see whether she was given credit for the $300.
On the first page, every deposit that she made to me is on the left. Every bill that I wrote to the Avenue or any of my other credit cards
So is what you're telling
to the right.
Is what you're telling me that at the time she made these purchases in October, she still had an outstanding bill to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor,
She made-
also Mrs. Griffin shopped along with me, and she had stuff on that bill as well, where our stuff was added together and not separately.
That's wrong, Your Honor. If you look at my receipts, I've been very careful, and she had one receipt, and I had one receipt.
Always a big mistake.
Your Honor, and
You know, you understand this is always a big mistake to do.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay. Miss Griffin, who it appears over an extended period of time, had been very good to you financially by allowing you to make these purchases when you didn't have the cash to do it.
Yes, ma'am.
Would all of a sudden say that you have an outstanding bill to her of $846 when you didn't?
Your Honor, like I said, when our friendship separated, it was due to the fact that her son stole from me and he went to jail for a drug
That's
charge.
untrue, Your
And I
Honor.
have the police report here. That's when mine and her friendship went sour, because her son came to me. He asked me for help. He spent 3 days at my home when she didn't know where he was. When I told her that he had been at my home, she got very upset with me for not contacting her.
What date was that?
It was before Halloween.
11/3.
So it was after this?
No, this was the weekend prior to 11/3.
Was it before or after the $1,000 check was cashed by the plaintiff?
This was after.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. We were still very much a part of each other's lives at that time. She had continued to call. I said, please do not call me anymore. I got so upset that I wound up in the hospital on her last phone call.
Okay.
Your Honor,
I believe you, sir. Listen to me. I believe you, sir, when you indicate that $1,012 was passed. Were you present when $300 was given to your wife?
Yes, Your Honor.
How was that given?
In cash.
$100 bill?
Rebecca, pardon me, Your Honor. Rebecca handed back cash, $300 cash to Nancy.
Not true, Your Honor. That is not true. And I have somebody
You have
here
your
with-
bank records with you?
No, because at the time I did not have a bank account. She was correct about that. I did not have a bank account. But I could have cashed that check myself through my employer's bank.
But you didn't.
But I always cash
You
my
didn't.
checks by myself. She
You
never
said
did
you
it
had a
before.
witness. I'll hear your witness if your witness has anything germane. If he does.
Yes,
What is your name?
Alan Young. I've been a friend of Rebecca's for 15 years. Becca asked me would I give her a loan of $300 because she owed Mrs. Griffith some money. She borrowed money from me that night because she said she had to pay on her rent or something. So I kind of believed her.
What is your rent, Miss Moore?
$385.
Well, even if she took all the money she owed you, you still had the $300 for rent.
I understand
So why did
that.
you need to borrow money from him for?
Because I had additional bills that I owed for besides paying her. But I wanted to pay her and have her out of the way because I always paid her before the bills were due.
Do you have the statement from your account, Miss Griffin, as to what payments you made on the account in November?
Yes, ma'am, that would be right in those payments there. I'll be glad
I
to
see.
show
You
them to
made a deposit on the 30th of October.
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, she was paid in full when she received that check.
No, ma'am, I was not.
Yes, you were.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so, because I see no other basis for her depositing only $300 into her checking account on the 30th
Well, Your
of
Honor,
October.
I can't help if that's the only thing she deposited. She was paid.
I have to make a determination based upon evidence. The evidence indicates that on or about the time that that check was cashed, she did deposit $300 into her account. So I'm entering a judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $842. That's all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
On Monday.
She is married, and at the time I had a fiance.
I lost a friendship on kind of her son's drug problem.
She knew that, and she was still coming on to me.
She can't rule everybody.
And now the next case.
All parties on Gregorian versus Scuturio. Step forward, please.
23-year-old cashier Mariam Gregorian is suing former live-in boyfriend, 23-year-old salesman Scott Scuturio, for his share of a security deposit. Scott is countersuing for the cost to rent a U-Haul, storage costs, and harassment.
Ms. Gregorian, you and the defendant lived together. Were you boyfriend and girlfriend at the time? According to your complaint, you had an arrangement with the defendant that since he had no money, you would put down the security deposit on the apartment, and he was to reimburse you for half.
For half, yes.
And half of the security deposit was $600?
Yes.
And you also say that the time that you left the apartment, because he was threatening, you gave him an additional $200.
For April's month's rent, yes.
So he says that you actually owe him money because he was forced, as a result of your leaving, to hire a U-Hauler to take all of his furniture out. Is that right?
Correct.
And that was not the agreement, that you were going to reimburse her for half of the security deposit. Your agreement was she would pay for the security deposit, first, last, etc., and you would pay for the household furnishings and all of the household appliances.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
When did you move in together?
We moved in February 1st together.
And when did you leave the apartment?
April 2nd.
And you would have an argument at that time?
Yes, we did.
Okay. So you were ready to call it quits, and you were ready to call it quits, I assume.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct.
Now, you agree that she did put down this $1,200.
The $1,200, correct.
And to fulfill your part of the obligation, you purchased all the furniture.
Correct.
And you purchased all the appliances.
Correct.
In the U-Haul that you hired, did you put all the furniture?
Yes.
And did you put all the appliances that you purchased?
Yes.
Did she take any of the furniture?
No.
Did she take any of the appliances?
No, ma'am.
Well, so then let's understand this. On the one side, she put down the $1,200. You purchased all the stuff, but you have all the stuff,
Correct.
right? She's out the $1,200, including half that should be yours, right?
No, because that wasn't the agreement.
Well, the understanding was that if she put down, according to you, that if she put down the $1,200, your capital contribution to the apartment would be, I assume, purchasing furniture and appliances about the same amount of money, $1,200.
Correct.
Did you spend $1,200?
About that, maybe a little more.
But you have it. You didn't say to her, I'll give you half, right?
Correct.
Why not?
Because the agreement was before we even took the apartment that if anything should happen to the relationship, that we would at least stay as roommates in the apartment.
Nobody stays on as roommates. That's stupid. In any event, sir, I don't believe you had that conversation. So what I'm asking you is, let's talk about money. Let's say you spent $1,200 on furniture, appliances. She spent $1,200, right? Each of you should be out $600. That's math. I'm not really good at math. But am I making myself clear to you, Bird?
Very.
Right. So you got $1,200 worth of furniture and appliances. That's on your side. But you kept it. Now, you want to give her $600, you want to give her half the furniture?
I'm not going to give her half the furniture.
So that's $600 for you. Now tell me about this $200.
The $200 was April 2nd when I left. He told me I owe him April's rent. And I felt that I didn't need to because it was April 2nd. It wasn't a complete month yet. I didn't need to give him anything.
But you did?
But I did, because at the time that he had a spare key to my car, and he told me that he would hide my car if he needed to until I gave him the money. And I took the $200 and I basically threw it at him.
So, cheap price, $200. You don't get that back. You get your $6, because I believe that that was your agreement. Now, you hired a U-Haul. Why didn't you stay in the apartment?
Because due to her leaving, I mean, I couldn't afford the apartment on my own.
Well, just a minute. How much was the rent?
$600 a month.
And she had already given you $2 for April.
She had not given me $2 for April.
During the argument, she actually opened her closet, which she already had her stuff packed, and just left.
She didn't give you an additional $200?
No, I left the apartment before she even finished taking her stuff out.
Really?
Your Honor, that's not true because we were fighting and there was a person on the phone. He was speaking to his mother and a friend of his, telling them how I started out being a psychopath. He sat there and watched me leave and pack up.
What date did you move out?
I believe it was the first week in May.
You stayed for the entire month of April.
Yes.
So you lived there. She didn't, right?
Correct.
So you pay for it. And then you had to move because of the rent. Where did you move to?
I'm actually staying with my sister right now.
Okay, you paying any rent there?
No,
Well, look at it this way. You spent $300 for a U-Haul.
approximately yes.
That would have been your share of the $300 worth of rent, right?
Correct.
And you couldn't afford the apartment anyway, right? So, and you got all that nice furniture. So what are you complaining about?
Your Honor, can I say something?
No, I want to ask him I want to find out what he's complaining about.
Actually, what I'm complaining about is, Your Honor, she stated in the police report, actually, when she filed for court, that I threatened her life and I threatened to do her harm. She actually, I have mail here, which she had actually forwarded to my sister's address. If I was threatening her life, I don't understand why she would forward mail to my sister's address where she knows that I go, when I also have police reports stating that they heard messages of her threatening to kill me, etc., etc.
Well, let me see the letter that you have, sir. I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but let me take a look at it.
I forwarded the mail to her sister's address because at the time when I had nowhere to go, she offered to take me in. That's why I did it.
Whatever. It's really not dispositive of anything. All right, you owe $600. Your counterclaim is dismissed. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $600. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I don't feel like I owe him anything.
Should have broke even. Nobody should have been.
And 44-year-old business owner Douglas Self for the cost of their father's funeral. Tina and Douglas say they never agreed to pay.
Order. All rise. Comfy?
Yes, I am now.
Okay. Yeah, this is case number 560 on the calendar in the matter of Selb versus Selb. Stamper. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Sir, have a seat, please.
Miss Selb.
Yes.
You were married to the defendant's father, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
For 7 years.
Almost 7 years. Yes, ma'am.
He died.
Yes, ma'am.
It is your claim that the defendants agreed to reimburse you for the costs of cremating your husband.
Yes, ma'am.
They say that there was never such an agreement. When did your husband pass away?
I cannot hear you.
When did your husband pass away?
He passed away of October 6th last year.
Was his passing away sudden?
No, ma'am.
He had been ill for a period of time?
Only my son was there.
Okay, let's try it on this side. Was your father ill for a long time?
I would say yes.
What do you mean you would say yes?
He had open heart surgery in 1994 and among many other illnesses, and I don't think he ever recuperated, if that's
from
what you
his
mean.
open heart surgery.
Right.
Were you notified as soon as he passed away?
Hello my dear friends, how are you? I hope you are best. Welcome to my channel. My topic today about which I guide you about social hacking techniques. I will give you information about social hacking techniques, but first of all, if you are new, so also please subscribe my channel, press the bell icon. So I have started my topic about social hacking techniques. So I have started carrying out and social marketing. Social hacking attack involves looking for weakness in user behavior that can be exploited through seemingly and legitimate means. 3 popular methods of attack include dumpster diving, role playing, and spear phishing. Dumpster diving. Shifting through garbage is a popular topic for social hackers to recover information about the habits, activities, and interactions of organizations and individuals. Information retrieved from discarded property allows social hackers to create effective profiles of their targets, and personal contact information such as employer data and phone numbers can be appropriated from discarded phone books or directions and used to gain further technical information such as login data and security passwords. And another advantage is find for social hackers is discarded hardware, especially hard drives, and have not properly been scrubbed clean and still contain private and accurate information about corporations or individuals. Since surfing through people's curbside garbage is not a criminal offense and does not require a warrant, it is a rich resource of social hackers as well as a legally accessible one. Dumpster diving can yield fruitful results of information seekers such as private investigators and stalkers, nosy neighbors, and the police. Role-playing, establishing a trust by fooling people into believing in the legitimacy of a false character is one of the main tenets of social hacking. Adopting a false personality or impersonating a known figure to trick victims into sharing personal details can be done in person or via phone conversation. In person, by posing as third-party maintenance workers in an office building, medical practitioners in a hospital, or one of many other firms. Social hacker can get past security personnel and other employees undetected. In both examples, uniform apparel is associated with a specific job function, giving people reason to trust. Impersonators are more complicated. Maneuver would involve a longer planning cycle, such as taking up employment inside an organization that is being targeted for an attack. And in the movie occasion, element sophisticated crew of con artists plot an elaborate heist to rob three popular Las Vegas casinos by assimilating themselves in the everyday activities of the casino's operations. Although the heist is executed in less than a day, the planning cycle is long and notably facetious. An imperative function of the attack is to present credibility in the roles being impersonated, to which attention to detail is inevitably required. So friends, how is my topic today, about which I gave you some techniques about social hacking techniques. I hope you like and you all learn about it, hacking some techniques. If you are like, so also please subscribe my channel, press the bell icon, so now you give me permission I am go to my new topic. Take care, Allah Hafiz. We will meet our next new best topics inshallah ta'ala. So now you give me permission I am go. Take care, Allah Hafiz.